way back in the Millennium days, early Millennium days. That's where it first started. It was, and there were only 3 people there. There was Neil Cameron, the former artistic director, and one of his children, and a Canadian backpacker, I believe, and that was it. It was a pole put in the ground, a few sheets of plywood, and they set it on fire with a couple of fireworks. That was it. It was absolutely nothing. It lasted about 10 minutes. The crowd went wild, and it built from that to what it is now, which is, we're looking at this year, possibly anything between 20 and 30,000 will be attending this event, whereas the first one would have had about 800 max. It's changed a bit. And the event really has developed from that to being what it is today. And what's happened also is that certain aspects of it have become a part of the show, and it's been kept that way. So one year, I'm not sure which one it was, they introduced a small lantern procession, which was one of Neil's favourite things that they used to do, where they make lanterns out of paper and cane. And it also gets the festivalians involved in this event. They come into the lantern making tent during the festival, and they sit there and they're taught how to make them if they haven't done any ideas about how to put the paper on, how to put a candle in so it won't burn and set fire to themselves or the image itself. And we usually try to get them to make images that are consistent with the show that we're trying to produce. And often all sorts of things come out, and sometimes it's quite humorous, and sometimes absolutely just sheer beauty is what you'll see. But that happened, I think, maybe the 3rd or 4th fire event, and that's a tradition that's been kept right up until this year now, 2004, where the lantern procession now takes probably up to 12 minutes to actually process through the event, with anything between 500 and 1,000 people in it. It's just absolutely staggering, massive images. And that's something that will always be a part of the fire event, but it's one that just happened to happen, just like that. So there's that. There's also another thing that happened, was the fire choir, as it's called now. There was I was involved in one of them way back in the Millennium days, early Millennium days, when the choir was about 20 people. There's anything now between 400 and 500 turn up every day during the festival for 1 hour to learn some of the songs that are going to be involved in the fire event itself. And they are absolutely mad about it. People come every year and they just can't wait to get involved in the fire event choir and sing, and we have wonderful directors to produce it. And this year we've got Rachel Hoare coming on, ex-Aramaida, who will be the choir director. Wonderful stuff. Once again, that's another tradition that we've kept. Another one that's happened is the wishing trees that we've had. People during, it's maybe because of the nature of the event, because it ends the old year and the new year coming in. It's always held on the 1st of January. So it's that time when traditionally people were making New Year resolutions and things like that. And it's quite a nice thing, really. We turned it around and had different things. One year we had clootie cloth. There were small strips of cloth, and this was a tradition that was found in England in parts, where people write a wish on it and it's ceremonially burned, and hopefully your wish comes true. And this year we'll be doing something a little bit different. We're going to make origami peace doves, and people will be asked to write their wishes on, and they will also be ceremonially incinerated during the fire event. And it's done like that because it is essentially a ceremony. Although it can be quite it is extremely spectacular event, it is in essence a ceremony, which makes it different from other types of theatre. One doesn't have an MC for a start. It just flows. There's no one says, here, go start this, start this. It's seamless, hopefully, from one end to the other, and sort of culminating in what can only be described as one of the biggest bonfires in the world. When we usually set fire to something at least 6 or 7 story building, the equivalent of, associated with lots and lots of fireworks and excitement and huge bands, often between up to 100 musicians on stage playing, which is quite a feat. Quite a feat indeed. This show would be absolutely impossible to pull off if it weren't for the volunteers. If we were to liken it to something like a Hollywood production where they've got all these extras and things like that, and you see the staging and all those things like that, they're all paid. That's why some of these blockbuster movies cost billions of dollars. We could never do that, absolutely. And we're always amazed ourselves at the amount of volunteers who come along and want to take part in this event. One of the other things is, because of the nature of the fire event, it often attracts loonies, which has been a bit of a problem in the past. They just think, oh, look at these guys, they build this thing and set fire to them, they must be as crazy as me. And so we have to have quite a team of people who vet them and make sure that they've got some background in possibly sensible theatre and they're not actually just going to be crazy. We have had people walking around images undetected until someone did see them, and with lighters and things, trying to light things prematurely. And the amount of explosives and flammable material we deal with is absolutely astonishing. And in fact, one of the main things I start off with each year is to address the crew, the actors, and etc., and the volunteers on the aspects of safety. It's the first and major thing that we have to take care of because of the amount of explosives and flammable materials that we use. It's very important, very important. Time. Well, I chose that mainly because of my own background, having my early years I spent as a watchmaker, so clocks and things have always been dear to my heart. So I thought for this first one that I would direct, we'd use the theme of time. All of a sudden you'd realise it was actually on time. It was actually, this image would have been the prize of any municipal council if they could have built something like that, with a 2-metre clock, in their borough or something like that. And knowing that this thing was on time for 3 days before, didn't lose a beat, before the event when we set it on fire and knocked it down. There's a symbol behind it. Maybe we should touch on that. Why do we burn these things down? And I think the closest thing we can come to that is, in a sense, it tells us about the impermanence of life itself. And that's why it's important for me to make sure that the images that we create are indeed very, very beautiful. We don't make them. In fact, I've had people working with me, sometimes carpenters and other people, who've said, well, we haven't got to make it properly because we're going to burn it down. And I sack them, because that's not the people I want. This image has to be beautiful. It has to be incredibly beautiful. So they think, why would you destroy that? And then I think, well, think about yourself, your own body, and how wonderful and wondrous you are. And yet you also will pass on. And it's that, and coming back to once again the impermanence. And I love it because it happens at the end of the year. And I remember we did a show at Milady once, and we had the god Janus, he has a head facing one way and another the other way. It's sort of looking backward at the last year, looking forward. It's a great image, and it was on doors. And I absolutely loved that, because this time of year it happened, looking back, looking forward. And this is what we're doing in life. A little bit of backwards, a little bit of forwards, but not too much forwards. give you an idea of how long or how much time and effort I put into it personally, this year's show, I woke up on the 3rd of January, 3 o'clock in the morning, with this idea. I went down to the shed and drew it all up. Until 5 o'clock in the morning I had it all sketched out. So this is only 2 days after the event, and so I'm fairly passionate about it and excited. And then on the 9th of January I had lunch with Bill Horrocks, who's the executive director of the Woodford Folk Festival. And I put this idea to him, and he looked at me and said, that sounds good. He was quite happy with it. So from then it develops. And of course your first blueprints and things like that, you work through so many things, because first of all you start off with an idea, and then of course you try them. There's a lot of research and development goes on. You think, does this work? And the paper's littered, the floor, is littered with papers and drawings, and there's bits of balsa wood and things like that, and it's all discarded and bits of things glued together, and you think, how can I make that do that? Then you realise that you can't. Back to the drawing board. And yet I'm dealing with huge things, huge engineering projects.